Welcome to the Market Me podcast with your host, Mike Mall. Each episode of Market Me deconstructs real campaigns for actual businesses to improve their marketing efforts. Mike is the founder of Social Media House and a digital marketing consultant who teaches marketing strategy to executives and their teams from small business to Fortune 500 companies. Let's get started.
This episode, we're talking to Gessie Schechinger. So close. From Oncourse CRM. How close was I? Pretty close.
You were getting there. You're so much better in practice. It's unfortunate.
I know. It happens every time. I find even when I'm creating other video content on the internet, if I'm reading off something or if I'm trying to do something scripted, it always goes worse than if I just speak.
That's just the name of the game, right?
Yeah, you got it. Anyway, man, tell me a little bit about the tool you guys have built and the history. I know it's part of a bigger software company, so give me your story. Yeah, no, Mike, I appreciate it. I've been writing you letters for like a year now, trying to get onto the show, and so I finally made it. To the Mike Mall podcast. So what got us here? So Oncourse is a sales engagement platform. And we call it that not just because it's a cute word for CRM, but because we do have a little bit of a difference. That difference really being that with the CRM, you have some of these basic functionalities like opportunity tracking and client history tracking, stuff like that. Whereas we really wanted to attach the communication channels into that broader platform. And it's kind of interesting because all of this stemmed from an annoyance over bills. That's really where everything started, because we were, as you kind of mentioned before, we have a software development services company. We're reaching out to lots of businesses to help them with various software needs. And what I thought was like a $20,000 annual spend on sales tools, once we got into the weeds and everyone's inviting other users and you just kind of get chipped away at this thing, all of a sudden I'm like, are we seriously $60,000 a year in sales tools? How many Calendly links do we have? How many Zoom things do we have? It was just one of those things that when you break into it, you're like, this is incredible. So I'm like, hey, idiots, I got tons of engineers. Let's buy something. We need to build something to save us some money here. And so we started out building the CRM component. And then we just really started taking down bills, right? So the next section, we wanted to get rid of our phone system. So we got the voice over IP built into the CRM. Then we wanted to get rid of our MailChimp stuff. So we put in bulk email. We added the bulk texting because that was just kind of an easy thing to do after we did the phone. All that stuff was, basically leveraging Twilio's platform. And then in addition to that, all of a sudden, you start getting some of that outreach sales loft type capabilities where you're bringing in some automation, some sequencing, stuff like that. And then lastly, just kind of breaking down all of our other individual tools and how we sell via LinkedIn and a bunch of other channels. And so it was a very interesting kind of pragmatic thing where it came together, and didn't actually think that anyone would buy it, to be honest, Mike. We weren't really focused in that category. It was really solving our own thing. And then we had a client ask us what CRM we were using. And we're like, oh, well, we have our own deal. And you want to use it? And I'm like, sure. Well, here you go. Here's some licenses. And then they got into it. And then so we're like, well, maybe we should open this up to some beta. And so from January 2019 until September, we had a bunch of people using beta, and then eventually we're like, hey, maybe we'll try to make some cash off this thing. Yeah. Well, and I think, as an agency owner, and even as anybody in that kind of creative space, we're always thirsting for what is that perfect tech stack? How do we organize everything we're doing? How do we make sure that we find the right sequence of programs that have integrations with each other? Because then when you start tying in Zapier, it's like, okay, now I got hopefully this works, and then hopefully that works. And if anything breaks, really, a lot of us are just cobbling together solutions. And you're right. You take a look at 5 users, your scale, hundreds of users, but even for a guy like me, 5 to 7 users on this platform, then 5 to 7 on this platform, 5 to 7 on this platform. then there's, you know what I mean? It gets pretty absurd. And, I love the approach. I love that it came out of a direct necessity of a company of your size. Cause to me, that scales down to any size company in such a meaningful way. So it's cool that a company of your size built it. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, and that's really the big part of it is it's actually way more practical for a smaller business or a smaller agency. I mean, if you have, just like 5 users or something like that, like you're going to want tons of functionality, but nobody's got the budget for that in most cases. And so it's really just kind of like an all-in-one type solution that'll let you go. And so it's been an interesting ride. It's interesting, and then the way that people use the tool is also very interesting as well as we got more users into it.
Right. What are some of the things that you thought were going to happen that didn't, or the other way around?
One, there was the funny thing about building software in general, especially when you're using selling software to help people sell, is you have like this really good idea of how everyone's going to use the tool, and then you get like your first 2 people in it, and they don't like half of this stuff. I'm sorry, I can't cuss. I got to mind my P's and Q's.
That's up to you. I couldn't care.
But a bunch of the stuff that's in the tool, like that I thought was like the greatest thing ever, like they're not even using. And so it's really depressing. Like some people have never used a CRM before, and they just like the reminder function, which is like the easiest thing to do. And then we put a bunch of stuff because we started selling the Oncourse and the software development services in one. We started adding multiple pipelines and the ability to set up different billing cycles. So maybe if you have a business where you are selling products, but you're also selling services in addition, those are sold very different ways. And so it gives you some flexibility there. And then probably the biggest thing was our LinkedIn automation and how people chose to LinkedIn automation, because it was a train wreck to try to put together.
Yeah, LinkedIn's like really restrictive and really challenging when it comes to getting access to anything. I know even from like the API endpoints for like marketing data, like if you're running ads or even just organic traffic and engagement data, like getting that onto a dashboard is pretty crazy. So I can only imagine how it was.
And when you're adding automation to LinkedIn, you're really in this adversarial type relationship, in the sense that on the one hand, we're very much encouraging people to use their LinkedIn platform, but I don't think that they're necessarily happy about automation being brought to their platform. And so they do a lot of different things to try to stop it. And it's a real problem, because for us, automating was interesting because we had to get engineers in and we had to literally time it out. Like, so if you tried to go into LinkedIn and just hammer a bunch of connections, just go like crazy machine gun with it, they're going to put you in what I like to call the penalty box, where they bring you up a little thing and says like, maybe you should try writing messages, which basically means like you need to take 28 seconds in between each connection. And we have a Chrome plugin that throttles all that stuff. It takes care of it for our clients. But it's a real challenge to sell. And, for those of your audience that are in more of like a direct sales role, or or marketing teams that are working with people that are selling, the LinkedIn is a really fun environment because it is the most polite of sales channels. And I can't nail down exactly why that is, because people have no problem blasting you on email. Like, you'd think that they would just delete you, but they will straight up say, take me off your list. God, there's a lot of anger that can come behind it. And people also have no problem hanging up on you. But the funniest thing is, and I think it's because maybe their face is next to where they work and you're like one click from their boss, so they feel like they need to be a little bit nicer. But it's a really crazy polite channel to work and to sell in. And I don't care. I mean, Mike, I've been in sales my whole life. Started off doing nothing but cold calls, went into field rep positions, been kind of all over the place. And it doesn't matter how long you do it. When you go to like cold call somebody, there's still like a little nervousness in the belly. It's like, oh man, how's this gonna go? You get weird moods where you're just like, oh man, just please let me get the voicemail. Like I'm not even prepared for this. Whereas LinkedIn, you can kind of jam straight to those decision makers, and you can do it in a really good way. And so the power of LinkedIn to sell is there, but it's not conducive at all to the sales process. And what I mean by that is, have you ever tried to follow up with anybody using nothing but the LinkedIn inbox?
Yeah.
I mean, you can just scroll down and down and down. There's no rhyme. There's no reason. It's almost impossible to do by yourself. And so we learned very quickly, because we had these SDRs that try to set up demos for Oncourse. We learned really quickly that we have to figure this out, because they're either going to forget follow-ups and everything. And so being able to build in the automation so that it can sync directly with the CRM, and then have that CRM remind you and bring up. So we actually, kind of the stem of your question was what kind of happened that went weird. And that was, we thought everybody would just want automated messages in LinkedIn. Like we set up a sequence, fire, boom, boom, boom. Well, the automation got really tough. And so we had to hit a place where we could bring up their LinkedIn profile and have the message pre-populated in the inbox or in your message box. But you had to go in and manually hit send. And so you'd have to work these manuals, hit send. And 100% a bug, but we got rid of it and got some massive complaints, because how our clients were using it is it's perfect. It's tease it up so then it can go in and personalize. And so I have to do the whole message. And so it was a very interesting way how that all kind of came together.
I like that a lot. Yeah. Because I think, we all know, those of us who have done outreach, I've been in sales, same thing, cold calling, emailing, door to door, at a team of 25 at one point. And we all that strategizing and timing that follow-up is already hard enough, especially when it's on social. I do a lot of Instagram DMs, because I'll actually record a video of me being like, hey, Mark, how's it going? Da, 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 da. That's my outreach. But yeah, so I think, I think having the ability to create that customization amongst sending all those messages, because yeah, you're right. You're not going to go back through all the hundreds that you sent, not in a meaningful way and not in an organized way. So I could see how that's more practical, where it propagates it, gets it ready.
Yeah. And it really just kind of irons it out. And my, I guess, mantra, if you'll say, is really don't burn calories on things that you don't need your mind for. And that's really what we're trying to do with all of our tools and our general sales philosophy is, sales is about relationships and selling is about relationships. You have to be able to put those together. But in between the gray areas, there's just a lot of things that you can automate from a process standpoint. And leveraging some of those tools can be extremely helpful for that.
Absolutely. And so is the feedback in general that you're receiving, it seems fairly good, because you've now productized it. Now you're kind of going all in with it to an extent. So it seems like it's good. I looking through the features as a guy who's at one point used HubSpot and used a lot of these other big ones, Sharpspring, which I think is a joke. It seems like it's a really great, well thought out product. So has the feedback been pretty good so far?
Yeah, the interesting part about it is that you kind of have two camps. And where we are, and for people thinking about it, where we're doing the best is companies that are kind of under that 20 million in sales revenue mark. So smaller businesses, because you get into some of these big SaaS companies and they all have this cookie cutter formula, right? They want their Salesforce, and that's going to be with Outreach.io, and they have all these. They really like the specialization in those categories, and they can rely upon it. And it's great for their size. For us, we just really want how can I get as much functionality as possible? How can I get these things to actually be in the same system talking together so it's useful, and do so at an area where I don't need a massive spend to get all these tools? And especially people who are in startup organizations or, again, these small businesses, Oncourse will provide a lot of those basic tools. And quite frankly, I still have a lot of bills, and so we still have a pretty good roadmap of things we're chipping away at. I mean, I'm kind of getting a little carried away, and you're kind of biting off a lot. But everything we do pretty pragmatically and make sure it's all based on clients, And so we have been receiving some feedback on different items. It's like, dude, you got me all the way to the meeting, but now I needed some other tool to schedule the meeting. I'm like, all right, well, we'll start working on the Calendly stuff. Like, and then before you know it, I'm gonna be trying to build Zoom. So really just trying to put together, the whole entire piece of how you can do this. And the interesting thing about our tool, that goes into, I think, a lot of people's frustration with CRMs is, so there's 360 CRMs out there. And of that, Salesforce owns 19% of the market. And so when you're shopping, looking through all these, where the huge number comes in is all of the specialized CRMs. I mean, I literally was talking to a guy who there's a CRM strictly for elevator repairman. Like, it's a thing. And if you do the math, you start thinking of all the elevators in the hotels. You're like, yeah, I guess I could see it. Right. It's a niche, right? And so the other thing that our tool we try to do is make it as configurable as possible. Because the reality of the situation is if you're in the need for a CRM, you already had a successful sales process. In order to get the money to pay for software, you had to be good at selling something. And so you need a tool that you can configure to exactly what your business needs, not a tool that's going to make you sell in a different fashion, so that you can go align with how they outline the process. And being extremely nimble and flexible in the configurations, try how to do that.
Absolutely. That's so smart. I mean, and you see it. I mean, I've sampled a bunch where you get like partway through and you're like, oh, this was built for like this really specific way down a path that you're going to make me take this as my next step, or like, why wouldn't you let me like change the way that this looks, or why wouldn't you let me change the way that this feels? And I agree. I mean, I've demoed a lot of software, and it's so disappointing all the time.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, it's like the world of software, like nothing's ever done. And if you try to take the attitude of like, oh, we're going to build this up and it's going to be great and peace out, mm-hmm. like you're growing or dying. There's no doubt about it. And you can certainly see those companies that have kind of, I mean, not rest on their laurels at all, but just, they're kind of done innovating. And that's where it gets thing. And so for us, it's like, how can we make it flexible? How can we make this really appealing to what we think, our clients and people kind of like they were in our same position can do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what's on the roadmap? I mean, obviously, the podcast is kind of a marketing focused podcast. So let's talk about that. Like, you've got kind of your beta, you've got some good feedback, it's productized. So how are you guys going out into the market with it now? Yeah.
So the product roadmap is the biggest thing that we want to do. And so here's the constant battle between salespeople and marketing people. Mm-hmm. It is, give me better leads, and why can't you close the leads that I'm giving you? And that is the debate that has happened since time immemorial, right? So what we're doing is we're actually trying to bring in some, it's a combination of sentiment analysis. It's a combination of using an algorithm. I don't really like saying AI, but it's an algorithm that's kind of weighted that it'll take a bunch of factors. And what we want to do is be able to have the software tell you how good the lead is based on how many actions and history it's taken to get them up to that opportunity stage. So you have a lot of sales guys that are, kind of, it's about 70% close. Like they're going to get there.
Right.
And again, we have all of this. We want to capture all that activity, and then it's really friendly. Obviously, like our marketing team, they want to know where to reinvest and where to, spend our budget effectively. And so we also want to capture all those UTM sources and make sure that we have a clear understanding of what's working and really kind of evaluate that. And so what we're trying to do is maybe two different things. So on the one hand, get better at predicting opportunity closing. And then the second thing, and I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, Mike. So so how would you judge the productivity of a sales rep?
So there's a couple of different things. I think selling into software versus selling into marketing is obviously different. I think the big problem with sales guys now is that they all bitch and moan about needing inbound, and you get very few people that are actually even good at outbound or good at. FreshBooks actually call me really compelling conversation. No chance I would use them, but like really interesting conversation, really interesting approach. And I believe in outbound the most. So there's that. But I think it depends on if it's an inbound or an outbound guy.
Sure. But a lot of it just stems from the amount of activity, right? Like you want to see that like sales reps are doing activity and like kind of managing activity. And there's a great guy that I talked with. His name's Andy Paul, and we had a great conversation, and we talked about it. And it's really, we're kind of pivoting our tool, because when I think of productive, I think of, well, how many hours did I have to pay you to get that sale? And looking at it a really different way. And as a software solution, because what I really want is the guy who can do one call close. That's like the most productive thing on earth. And it'll be cool, because if you can try to figure out how somebody is spending the least amount of hours closing, and how many hours it's taking you to close an opportunity, and how many activities, you can start drilling into how you shorten up the sales cycle. And I think when you get that information, marketing, I look at marketing kind of as the guys are like, hey, there's a pond over there. And then the sales guys are in there just all ripping the fish in the boat. And I think a lot of times sales doesn't do a decent enough job actually reporting back on like, hey, this is what the customers are saying. This is what they like, and so you can market against it. And I think if we start finding those areas of shorter wins, it's going to give a lot of insights to the marketing guys on where they need to invest and what the messaging they need to focus on is. And that's ultimately what we're all A/B testing and trying to figure out every day, right?
Got it. Have you heard of a tool called Built With?
I have not.
So it's like essentially it's a Chrome plugin, but there's also a website for it. And basically it's like if you jump onto a website, it gives you the tech stack, right? So everything, the plugins, does it have the Facebook pixel on it? It has all these different metrics. But what's cool is if you go to the website and you just pick the product that you want, it'll actually give you a list of all the different websites that are active and previous on those platforms. The guys that developed it, in my opinion, are sitting on a bit of a gold mine, because they charge you for $1,000 a month. You can pick as many technologies as you want and then export those lists.
Wow.
Of like worldwide websites, and it gives you like domain authority, it gives you the Alexa score, it gives you like all the contact information, email, person, phone number, social media. It's crazy. So what I typically do is I'll go on and buy the $1,000 plan for the 1 month, pick all the technologies I want, export it, and then cancel it. It doesn't make any sense the way that their thing is. Like, if you want to have an up-to-date list, you got to say subscribe. But like, I pulled a list of active Shopify, Magento, and WooCommerce stores a couple months ago, and it was like hundreds of thousands of records. And you can also, like with the Shopify, you can also say like, I want there to be this much technology investment in like apps and stuff. So if they have like over $100 worth of apps and it's an active store, these are the people I want to talk to.
That's really cool.
You might look up some of that for some of the competitive people to pull some lists of their active customers. Those might be a great hit list for your sales guys.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And we, I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about it, but we've been having fun with Zoho lately. We've been kind of poking those guys recently. But yeah, no, that would be incredibly good information. And it all comes down to, and like, there's such incredible lead sourcing right now, and it's such a great way to figure it out. And so you try to figure out how you handle it all. And I mean, it's Are you familiar with the Topo report
No.
by chance? So Topo is a third-party reporting company. What they do is they'll go over anywhere from 250 to 300 companies, and they study their outreach campaign. And they study what kind of channels are the most effective way. So for an outbound lead, for example, it really ends up being like 16 to 20 touches by the time it's done. And those series of touches are done via email, LinkedIn, calling, the whole 9 yards, and how you sequence and put those together. And that is, it's one of the biggest challenges of selling in our time, because like, as you said, like you have 1 month, you get all these leads, right? So it's like, what am I going to do with this? Because you want to be cognizant of what I would call the wham, bam, thank you, ma'am model. We're just kind of like spraying through, like, want to buy, want to buy, want to buy. Because, there's some reputational stuff there. But, I think that there's a role for automation to be played responsibly, where you can go and manage those as effectively as possible, for sure.
One thing I really like, and I've done this with the Shopify and Magento stores, is I dumped the email lists into Facebook, and it matched up with like a big group of Facebook users, and I just ran like brand awareness, like promotional video stuff to them. And then I used people that watched a certain percentage of the video to like target on a deeper level. But that's like really, not cold outreach. It's like kind of subtle, like, oh, well, this makes sense that I would be targeted for this, but they don't know how they're being targeted. So I like it for that, for using like, like 30-second kind of teaser videos for stuff. And then see out of that list of people you put in, who watched a percent or who clicked on it, and then retargeting messaging based on like people that engaged with it. That's a cool technique that we've been using a lot.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And, unfortunately for me, my expertise is really in the tactical sales side. And so learning about all these little tricks to get more leads and get things warmer is excellent for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I think you guys are completely on the right track. I know a number of people that I've got a couple people that I'm going to introduce it to, actually, because a lot of us guys who are the 5 to 20 employee guys, it's a nightmare for us. Like, it's just, we don't have the time or we don't have account executives dealing with this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like us, we're selling. And so when we're confused about what the hell's going on, like, it's a big problem. So.
No, absolutely. And, just, for your audience sake, we don't do any of the minimum users. We're not going to make you buy a block of users or any kind of stuff like that. And so whatever you want to do is good. If you want to use it, if you're a solo person, you just want to use it for yourself as you manage your stuff and use some of the tools, we're more than happy to have you. Wrap it up.
I think we got a bunch. I think there were some really great insights. What I'd like to do is, if you want to give me the web address and that kind of thing, and where people can find it, and then we'll obviously link it up in the show notes and that.
Cool. Hey, so thanks so much for having me on the podcast. If people are interested, please go to tryonccourse.com, as well as our Oncourse on LinkedIn, and sign up for a demo, and love to be able to show everybody the tool.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks so much for your time today.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.